Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here today to go over my year-end list. The first of my two year-end lists I'm going to cover is the top 5 best moments in Toonami in 2023. Now, many things happened this year, obviously, and actually when I was compiling my lists for best and worst, I actually came up with more good things to happen to Toonami this year than bad. However, you can definitely counter argue that the things that went bad were maybe more important or larger in scale than the things that went well. But you know what? I'm going to do something a little different this year and go for the best 5 things in Toonami this year first. And yeah, so without further ado, let's go into number 5. The top 5, the fifth best thing to happen in Toonami 2023 was getting rating boosts this summer from Unicorn Warriors Eternal, a show that most of you probably already forgot ever existed, even though it's going to get a season 2. Unicorn Warriors Eternal was the latest Gendy Tartakovsky, I probably horribly pronounced that name again, project, which is basically British steampunk people with powers stuff show. But again, it was not a Toonami show. It kind of was. It wasn't a Toonami show. It debuted Adult Swim at Thursday night, but then the rerun of that episode would be the first show on Toonami for parts of the summer. And the thing is, that show rated pretty fairly well, especially earlier on in this run. The ratings did fade a little bit from this show as the season went on, but as of right now, if Adult Swim needs a hit, they just need to call Gendy because he has that show. He has Primal, which is highly rated and very critically acclaimed. So right now, years past something like Dexter's Lab, Gendy is still pumping out hit after hit after hit. And in this case, it did help Toonami because the shows after Unicorn Warriors Eternal did get a bit of a boost in the ratings this summer. Yet again, it's kind of a very tangential thing, which is why it's only the number 5 best thing to happen to Toonami this year. So now on to number 4, and that is something that's pretty recently, and that is the return of Dr. Stone to the block. Actually, you can make this argument that Dr. Stone returned twice because season 3 was divided into 2 parts, with the first one being announced in June 2023 and the second part being announced in November. Again, Dr. Stone has made its way into becoming one of the big staples of the block. We've had 3 seasons of it on the block, and it is a show that is very well received on the block and is also very well received even outside of Toonami. And I don't know. I don't know if there's been an announcement about a season 4 or something like that, but if season 4 is announced and if it does air, at this point I feel pretty assured that it will probably ultimately be on Toonami as well. Although probably a little later than most people would want, which definitely goes into kind of something I'm going to have on my worst of list, but that's for another time. So, with that being said, what's the number 3 best thing to happen in Toonami 23? I will argue it is Fooly Cooly Shoegaze. Not the Fooly Cooly sequels, just Fooly Cooly Shoegaze. And again, and I kind of mentioned this in the videos I made about Fooly Cooly Shoegaze earlier this year. This this universe of Fooly Cooly, because this is, in many ways, this is a sequel to Fooly Cooly Alternative. Fooly Cooly Alternative is mentioned, and the main character, Kana, from Alternative, does come back in a very large role in this anime. This is the one, like, sequel universe of Fooly Cooly I feel like the most got the original, or understood the original. The original, if you boil it down, is a relatively normal boy with issues growing up that deals with puberty, that deals with stuff relating to him growing up into puberty, questions he has for his life, going through this crazy experience and figuring out some things for himself. He doesn't figure out everything, but he puts himself in a position where he feels like maybe I can deal with puberty. Maybe I can grow up. Maybe there is some hope for me. And I feel like this universe does the best job of it because, again, if you go back to Alternative, Kana, relatively normal girl. Nothing really wrong with her at all. And it's a girl thrown in a very bad situation with her best friend moving and dealing with all the feelings and emotions with this, going to puberty, falling in love, having a crush on a boy, and balancing every little bit of her life. And then going to this one, you follow her character a decade later, where she is going through a lot of problems that people in their late 20s are spinning the wheels in life, going nowhere, and her coming to a head with regards to this. Now, she's not even the main character in Shoegaze, because it's I can't even remember the main guy's name. And then you have the girl who's knockoff Haruko, but it's just a whole nother thing. But again, and Kana in particular, the speech she gives the end of the second episode was amazing because it perfectly boiled down that experience of being in your late 20s and not really figuring out things in life and really worrying about the mistakes you've made since becoming a teenager. And that's something that really personally hit home for me. And again, Shoegaze, I thought stuck the landing fairly well. It stuck the landing in the way only you can really argue Alternative did of all the other Fully Cooley sequels. So that's why it's the best thing to happen to Toonami this year. It was definitely the best original on Toonami in 2023. So that being said, let's go to number two. Number two, I'm kind of cheating because this is technically a January 2024 thing, but that is the announcement that actually hasn't even made I don't think Toonami's officially made this announcement yet, that Lycoris Recoil is coming to the block. I'm a little biased here. I love Lycoris Recoil. I have mentioned that numerous times, especially recently after Aniplex of America did make the announcement that on January 20th it will be on Toonami. You know, I love it. And of all the shows that have been announced to Toonami for this year, it is far and away my favorite. It's I'm saying this because I think I might be off on this. I believe Made in Abyss season 2 got announced late 2022, which is why it didn't qualify for this list because spoiler, if Made in Abyss was if it was announced in 2023 instead of 2022 to air in 2023, it would be number one. Because y'all know how much I love Made in Abyss, especially if you follow my Twitter account. You know how much I love Made in Abyss. It is my personal favorite anime. But again, I love Lycoris Recoil. It's my favorite show Toonami announced this year, so I'm going to be biased and put it number two. Now, before I go into number one, I'm going to go over some of the honorable mentions. Stuff I thought did warrant a mention of a good thing to happen in Tommy this year, but not necessarily good enough, I feel like, to throw it on my top 5 list. One of which is the fact that we are finally done with Food Wars. And the reason why I phrased it like that is because season 5 or plate 5 of Food Wars is notoriously bad. And I can't find that many people who would argue that strongly against that. If you love it, more power to you, but a lot of people are just kind of happy it's done with. Food Wars is done. It's gone. It's history. It's yesterday's news. And again, people are going to celebrate that. Another thing was the announcement of Lazarus. It will be a Toonami original. It will be directed by the guy who directed Cowboy Bebop, which is definitely a Toonami staple / Adult Swim action staple back in the day. So again, a lot of notice, a lot of expectations for this because of that. And a lot of people were genuinely excited for it. But again, I need to see stuff. I mean, look, if my worst list, I'm gonna mention the reason why I'm kind of hesitant to give that much credit to Lazarus yet, because we do have a history of not getting a nut originals in time. Okay, and now the last honorable mention is the fact that we got Attack on Titan back for its last weird series finale special thing, because we got in September we got part 1 of the finale, and we got the announcement that part 2 of the finale will be airing on, I believe, January 6th of 2024. I didn't make a video about that, but again, yeah, Attack on Titan finale part 2 or part 3 or wherever they're on this point, it will be airing very early in 2024, so stay tuned for that. Now, with the honorable mentions out of the way, let's go to the top thing. What is the best thing in Toonami in 2023? You know, I already mentioned for number 2, Lycoris Recoil, getting that show because, again, it's my favorite of the shows that have been announced. But there's another show, a show that is fundamentally changed the anime landscape in a way. One that has absolutely made itself known, not just in Japan, but also United States. For a while, we thought we would never see on Toonami again. We got season 1, but season 2, because of a movie that came out that made so much money. Oh, it's too expensive for Toonami. We'll never get it. Aniplex would never let us have the rights to it, but we do have it, and we got it. We got the movie, and apparently we're getting season 2 as well. And if you've been paying attention, and honestly, I probably showed a picture from it already here on the screen, I'm talking about Demon Slayer. Why is Demon Slayer number 1? Why? I mentioned other shows we got, and why do I rank this above higher? Well, because it's the biggest name anime out of all of them. Demon Slayer is the only anime right now I feel like is challenging One Piece's reign on top of popularity in Japan. And it's definitely absolutely met itself known in the United States. It is probably the first big name anime of the 2020s in the United States in terms of cultural impact. Like throw it up there like in the 2010s, we had some like Sword Art Online that became huge. My Hero Academia or an Attack on Titan. When your name becomes that synonymous, where if you could show someone an image of it or someone making a reference to it, you understand what it's referring to. Demon Slayer, I feel like, has hit that realm. And that's why it's number one, because it's the biggest one of these shows, and it symbolizes that Toonami still might have a little cachet. They might get shows they need. They might get shows that have big names, although it might have more strings attached to them. So it's the number one because it shows maybe Toonami does have some cultural relevance still. Maybe it still has some type of sway. And that's why it's number one. So, what do you guys think? That was my best of Toonami in 2023 list. Leave your comments, leave your opinions, and all that junk below. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.